A horrific crime. A San Antonio woman beaten with baseball bats, her throat slashed, murdered inside her own home. The suspects, her 18-year-old son and his friend.
Now records uncovered by our defenders show San Antonio police were called to Mary Dempsey's home the night before her body was found. As our Dylan Collier reports, the responding officer simply patrolled by and never even knocked on her door. It's tonight's Defenders investigation.
The San Antonio Police Department did not want you to see the following document. A calls for service sheet for 7531 Stagecoach Lane. It shows that on April 8th at 10:15 p.m., a 911 caller told an SAPD dispatcher 2 men dressed in black were seen running from the home. But the dispatcher who took the call labeled it miscellaneous, and the officer who responded patrolled by without stopping. The next day, the daughter of Mary Dempsey found her mother's body covered with a blanket on the living room floor. SAPD now concedes the call was coded incorrectly. It's the third SAPD communications blunder tied to a high-profile murder case in just over 2 years. Last April, officers dispatched to the shooting of a Highlands High School student were sent to 3903 Southwest Military Drive instead of the crime's actual location.
It showed the officers with that at Southwest Military, but it's Southeast Military?
It's Southeast, yes.
Okay, ma'am, they're on the way.
The error took more than 5 minutes to correct. Then there was the March 2017 murder of Stephanie Woodford. That shooting, according to dispatch records, was first listed as a welfare check, even though the 911 call taker relayed to her supervisor that there was likely a body inside the home on Teasdale Drive.
I'd probably list it as, I don't know if you're asking, but maybe a welfare check.
It was handled improperly from the onset.
Catherine Carillon would know. The longtime SAPD communications employee was also assigned to the Teasdale shooting as a dispatcher. She says she made the decision to tone out the call and send officers to the scene with their lights and sirens on.
It wasn't an incident where it could have been anything else than an actual crime scene.
The time for a welfare check is probably gone.
There was no checking the welfare.
Carillon retired in February after 24 years with the city, and at times strained relationship that included Carillon suing her former employer in 2015, only to dismiss the case less than a year later. She says her central concern remains the same. SAPD's communications unit has a void in leadership.
I could see that things were not headed in a good direction, and I no longer felt that my job was making a difference.
SAPD officials refused to sit down with the defenders to answer questions for this story, but did tell us in an email the overall performance of the communications unit is at an all-time high, before addressing the Stagecoach Lane mistake with what has now become a common refrain from the department. Quote, had officers made the scene at the time the call was received, it unfortunately would not have changed or prevented what happened to the victim. For the defenders, Dylan Collier, KSAT 12 News.
SAPD officials say the 911 caller for the Stagecoach Lane incident gave inaccurate information. The department has not said how. Still, the agency concedes that corrective action was taken against the dispatcher who answered the call.